You can do it. You can go create. Just get to it. I promise you'll feel great. Because life can get ugly, and art sure can too. What matters is to do it. Let those feelings flow through you.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Ugly Podcast. It's me, your host, Laura Alexander, they, them. I'm still a white androgynous person. I've got big round glasses and short curly hair, and my girlfriend likes to describe it like those fuck boys where they have the long curly hair on the top and shaved on the sides. So I've got that fuck boy haircut going for me. They got it from me, so I have a great guest for you today. My guest is, I love this description, and I'm going to savor speaking it. My guest is energetically invested in the decomposition of paradigms. She believes the traditional conceptualization of reality no longer benefits the beholders. She sources her materials for new paradigms from that which has been deemed taboo and integrates her discoveries into everyday reality through art that is scaffolded with values of collective care. In her own practice, she focuses on the art of thought, conversation, connection, movement, music, and poetry. Welcome, friend. Would you please introduce yourself with your name, your pronouns, and a brief physical description?
Yeah, my name is Jamie Fiano. I use she, her pronouns, and I've got some outgrown hair. I love the fuckboy description, by the way. I hadn't ever thought of it like that. Like, I dig your haircut, so it's like, I think you're right. I think they got it from you, dude.
I've had it for a while, and I'm pretty sure it's like a relatively new phenomenon amongst the fuckboys, so they're always stealing stuff from queer people.
Honestly, like, I don't mind that integration. Like, it's kind of fun. But yeah, so that I got to my hair and then I got distracted. I got to your hair then. I've got these blue eyes with a little bit of a laze to them. A laze and a glaze. I'm Caucasian with some freckles and some acne and some wrinkles and some big old smile lines. So yeah, I don't know.
Love it.
I describe myself usually, but yeah.
Wonderful, thank you. And thank you for agreeing to come join me today. This is
oh my gosh, I'm
fun.
so excited. Yeah. I just want to start off by saying that, like, I really appreciate the way you dialogue. So, like, and this is an opportunity to say that I also appreciate the way that you hold silence in, like, the conversations that we've had. Like, I was thinking about that today, and I don't, just in, like, there's a difference in what the spaces we hold silence in, and so I don't know how you function in other ways, but when it's just you and I, and we're like, when we've been at the gym or something, and you're like sitting with me, and in that silence, I feel really comfortable with you. So, like, thank you for being a person like that. Yeah.
Oh, that makes me so happy.
Hell yeah.
I thank you. That makes me really happy. I do appreciate a good silence, and I also appreciate how you interact in those situations too. Like, you don't just like breeze by topics, which I so appreciate. You're just like, I need to sit with that for a second, and I'm like, yeah, these are thoughts we need to sit with. Like, yeah, let's do it. Let's sit in silence for a second. Like, it's a really fun way to, like, deepen a conversation, and like, I think it's really cool.
Sick.
Sweet.
Here we are in that space.
And here we are. Let's do it. I would love to talk to you just more about your relationship to creativity, what has been like the story arc of creativity in your life, and what's your relationship with it today?
So I hadn't really thought of this until you brought it up to me. So this is all very new thought. I wouldn't ever have described, I don't know if I've ever described myself as creative. I don't think it's on my resume anywhere. That's not like that's not the metric for where I describe myself, but it's just like a really generic version of me wouldn't even consider myself creative. And so I like, which it feels, not to say that creativity, but it just like, it's not in my vernacular. And that was a little bit surprising to me because I do engage in and appreciate creativity and arts. And so it like, that caused me to dive in, and I really did like look into my childhood and look into all of this. And so I think that like I still wouldn't necessarily call little me like creative in the traditional sense of like I never like arts and crafts was not ever my thing. Like when I think of creativity on a level, right? Like here we're gonna enter into the levels of like the surface level. Like what kind of catches my mind first is like I didn't know how to use crayons. Like I didn't know how to use colored pencils or anything. Like I never cut in straight lines. Like I was always outside of the lines. My pen marks were too dark. Like, and so that really discouraged me from settling into this idea of creativity, I think, as a child. But now as an adult, where I see that creativity is so much more than that, I can go back to my, and I was doing this morning in reflection, and I went back to my little kid self, and I was like, but in what ways are we both proud, both the child in me and the adult in me, both proud of the ways that we felt creative? And it was in the like social interactions and the emotional interactions and the like my adaptation, my skills of survival, where I felt like I was really creative as a kid. And so like finding loopholes, like I found a lot of loopholes as a kid. But yeah, so like there were elements of there are elements of creativity that I reflect on that came from having to navigate my upbringing, right? So during my upbringing, I wouldn't have described myself as creative, but when I reflect on it, I do feel creative in that like I had to be. And that another way that was is like in interacting with my mom, like I said, social interactions were part of my creativity, and like my mom was my primary caretaker, and a way that I had to be creative or a way that I learned to be creative in conversation and like emotional understanding was by like becoming a comedian or becoming an actor or performer with my mom. To like kind of she had really big mood swings, and so to kind of grab onto her moods, I would interact with her in a specific way and then kind of bring her back. You know, and that started when I was really, really little. And so those are, and then, you know, in that instability, we were moving around a lot too. I don't know. Yeah. And so in movement, I was seeing a lot of new places. I was experiencing a lot of new things. I was often alone. And so like really receptive to what was around me because there weren't any like barriers. And so I think that gave me like it was an intake of landscape that I could then pull from later as an adult when I was able to enter into more imaginative spaces. Like I think as a child, I was really, I wrote this down. Okay. Get me back to an anchor. I said, creativity is the creation of space, which is safe, secure, and sacred. And that was just a note to myself that I'm sharing with you. Creativity is the creation of space, which is safe, secure, and sacred. And I don't think I knew what safety felt like as a kid. Like, I don't think I knew what security felt like as a kid. And so my focus, you know, it was to find that. And I found it outside, and I found it in looking at people and learning from people and like experiencing them. And so like that created then the imaginary landscape that I pull from in my creativity now. And like the worlds of experiences that I've gone through as like an individual, you know, and like really just like, I feel like I just harness them. Anyway, so I could keep going on that. I just like live in the essence of like how life forms and develops and like time and change and like what it creates, you know, like I feel like I got to really, really sponge that up as a kid. And I am just savoring it now as an adult. And like that has been really difficult because there's been so many barriers, so many prickles, so many snags, and just like this, like finally me being able to like settle and sink into it, that I still like don't fully comprehend like the sense of security, the sense of safety that I actually do reside in, because I have had to find it and secure it and attach myself to it and then express it. And that's where my creativity now is like in the expression phase of like, I'm feeling like I can talk to people, I'm feeling like I can connect with people, I'm feeling like in that I can also make music and like write poetry and like share it. And anyway, so yeah, does that kind of answer that question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. There were a lot of things that my brain grabbed onto.
Okay.
And one of them being like how you define creative, and like how so many of us define creativity as like it's putting a crayon to paper. It's like putting color on a page. It's sharing that. But like creativity has so much more to it that is just really how we live our lives. And it can be presented in so many different ways. And so I think that's why so many of us have that thought, because like I felt the same way, like I'm not a creative person. And so like, and I think it's because we see creativity as one thing when really it's so many different things and it comes out in so many different ways. So one of the things you said was like, now creativity is expressing itself in, or I think expressing itself was the word you used, but like in wanting to share it. And like there's like so many different expressions of creativity, and some of them are like living a creative life in your relationships, in how you navigate the world, and other times it's actually creating an output that you then share with people. So I think that's a really keen observation, and just like interpretation of like what is creative and where do I see it in myself, because everybody has it in ourselves. And I think it's really important to ask ourselves, where am I creative, if not in this way of like coloring on paper or whatever.
Well, and it's just like the way that you were describing it, or like when you first responded, was, you know, it made me think of multitudes, like, and that creativity isn't just like the multitudes itself, but the understanding that the multitudes exist within context of each other. Like creativity is that strand, it feels like, that like both ties it all together, like explain, like yes. Sorry.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so yeah, thank you for reflecting that back. And yeah, if I just like the way that makes me feel, you know, to understand that, to like oh, it's like, if it feels freeing, it feels like, oh, anything can be creative, but not in a way where it gets diluted by the mass. It's where it's like it actually adds to the context of the reality, because it is like a multitude of multitudes, and though they share the name, that doesn't mean that they share like exact structure and model. It's still individual, it's still necessary as a part of a whole. And I think that's kind of where the discouragement in expressing creativity comes from too. It's just like that, like, oh, well, someone's already done it before, whatever, you know, like this isn't its own thing. And like, that's kind of what I hear. But anyway, that's kind of a little bit of a rabbit trail.
No, that's definitely, we love rabbit trails here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get that a lot, that like fear of this isn't going to be unique, or this is like, people have said this before, so I don't need to say it. And it actually reminds me of, there was this short story, and I'm not going to remember the name, but I'm going to put it in the show notes once I remember it. But there was this short story about like, oh no. Now my brain forgot the entire story.
Oh, no.
Basically what it came down to was like, because it was about extending like copyright laws to go like into eternity, to be infinite. And like the danger of that is that like we have a finite lived experience, and like all stories that have been told are just adaptations of stories that have been told before. Like there is nothing new. You cannot come up with anything new. And like they talked about like music, and how there are like, I can't remember exactly how many, but basically there are only so many ways you can rearrange musical notes. And like there's like scientists who have like outlined them all, and like those are the only ways you can rearrange musical notes, because it's a finite number of notes, right? And so like
I don't know if I would say right to that, but yes, I hear what that is like, and statistically that makes sense to me. But yes, keep going.
But like which is why you hear so many songs like sound similar to other songs. And you're like,
Right.
oh, this
Yes,
song's
absolutely.
because it's similar, because like
The
you
notes.
can only rearrange
Yes.
notes in different ways.
And that makes sense. Yes. Yes. Right.
But like, so it's more of like discovering things that are new instead
Yes.
of like truly coming up with quote unquote unique things. You're discovering things anyway.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Yes. That's where I was going to. Okay.
Does
Yes, it does. It makes a lot of sense. It was just I like got a little bit when I hear people.
I know I touched on like musical notes, and you're like, "What?" And you got to
No. It wasn't that. No. Let me. Pardon. I think there's been a slight miscommunication that I think I can abridge here.
Yeah.
I when people are telling me about science, I'm in science mode, and so I'm like, okay, this person says this, but like my science mode is in how do we bridge the like hard mathematical natural science whatever with like the social psychological sciences. And I'm not saying this very well, but it's like my brain kind of just is in, okay, I'm hearing one thing, is there something else that isn't quite included in there yet? And so when I heard
see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, cool. And so like when I heard you say that, like the statistic aspect of the music notes, and I was like, yes, but there's the feeling that goes into it. Like, let us not forget. So
yes.
So when you were like, right, I was like, well, like almost
like not quite, but yes, but not quite.
Yes, yeah. And then it's once you got to exactly the like once you got toward finishing your sentence, which I didn't mean to interrupt, like we were on the same. We were saying this, thinking the same thoughts, which is that like, it's not about creativity is not about what it sounds like, how it sounds similar, but it's like in the ways that it feels and sounds and was created differently. Yeah, is that kind of what you were saying with discovery piece?
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. And it's like it's your perspective on it, and you are a unique individual in this world. And while like the things that you want to say might have been said before, you haven't said them before.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
So say them.
Yeah. Okay, I have this like dorky favorite word of mine. And I'm sure you know it. I think we talked about this actually. I think this is one of our first conversations, maybe. No. If not, I dreamed it.
You haven't said the word yet. I don't know what the word is.
We'll get ready. Buckle up, I guess. So the word is palimpsest. And it's did we talk about this?
I don't know if we've talked about this, but I only know the word because of a Dimension 20 season where the bad guys in the show like were capturing people in palimpsests, and like they were like locking people in these like gems that were called palimpsests. So I don't know what the context that you're talking about is.
That's interesting.
That's what it was in Fantasy High.
I like Fantasy High. Okay, cool. Yeah, okay. The understanding that I have of a palimpsest is that it is like a document that has like I don't have the time frame of the etymology, but it is before erasers were invented.
The before times.
I think so. Before like the number 2 pencils maybe, but it's like a document where you write something down and then basically function to remove what has been there originally and cover it up with like, or reuse it, and then the markings of what was before are usually still kind of visible within it. And so that was making me think of why did I think of that? I got a little spaced out because I got excited about the gems. I'm like Spyro. So let me chase that thought really quick. Just people seeing that something existed before, but also are within themselves like an expression of something different and new. And part of the beauty can be found in the ways that we've recycled. And like that kind of goes back like the decomposition, the using of materials that have been done before, breaking them down and filtering them through a newness that is the self. Totally.
Yeah, I love that. That's been I've been really into collage lately. That's been my preferred
Oh, fun. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
medium right now, and it's
Cool.
been I love that idea of just like found materials and then just shaping them into something new.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Speaking of like that decomposition in the intro, the beautiful intro that you wrote for me, you talked about like the decomposition of paradigms, and so I wanted to talk more about like how do we use art to design and imagine new paradigms, especially like I don't know, right now I swear like every day I hear a new video or somebody talking about like we're in like a paradigm shift, like
Yeah. Cool.
and it's like, yeah, okay, what does that mean? What does that mean
Yeah.
for us and for our art, and how can we engage in this? Like, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Oh my gosh, yeah. Second part of that just like caused my heart to race a little bit because it's like that's I haven't felt that way before. I haven't felt like the narrative is saying there's a paradigm, we're in a paradigm shift, and so that's a cool positive reinforcement of a reality that I want to become true. Like I want us to be in a paradigm shift. Oh yeah, and I think we are. So sick. Yeah. And what does that look like creatively? How does that get expressed in art? The first thing that comes to mind for me is like animation, and stop motion and like claymation. And I think this is where I really felt my brain be transported consistently over time and like into new spaces, right? I think that's true for like TV in general. Like it just really has the capability of doing that for me when I was a kid, and as an adult not so much. And as an adult, but animation and claymation consistently pull me into an imaginative space where anything is possible. And it's low stakes. It's not a reflection of self or anything. So it's like it felt like the first act of like liberating my mind. Maybe that's a little dramatic, but like it felt like an act of exiting reality and entering into imagination that didn't require any effort or critique or potential failure on my part. Right? Like I was just like consuming.
Yeah. So for you, claymation helped you kind of get into a mind space that wasn't
art,
that regular paradigm that we're used to living in. It wasn't the reality that we're forced to see and confront every day.
Right. And it was because of like the connotations that I had around art as I was beginning to engage with it in my childhood, right? Like, because right now I'm like, there are constructs of thought that channel the way that I receive the world, and I think that's like what a paradigm is, right? So that I'm kind of applying that to everybody, but I'm speaking of it as if it's just me. But like one of those was art in and of itself and creativity, and like this conversation broke down a construct of thought in that and created more liberation. And so I think that claymation and animation were one of the first things that kind of like was a hammer to the construction of thought that I had around art, and thus was also, because creativity is so heavily attached to art as a thought, as a word, as like a creation of connotation and language, perpetuation, and then ideas and et cetera, is like, if that makes sense, is that the ability to have that freedom and experience that freedom allows me to break down thoughts that don't move me forward, but keep me attached to the systems of thought that I think perpetuate problematic behavior. And as like a person, creativity has been, let me see if I can really summarize this. Creativity has been, as I'm understanding it now, creativity has been what has like allowed me to survive that which was really difficult to survive. It established resilience in me. And it's how I like share what resilience is. And I think that like in paradigm shifts, there also has to be the certainty of an outcome, and resilience almost guarantees that. like that there is like the paradigm shift allows for something else to occur, and like that can be ambiguous, and that is okay. like
Yeah.
I think that there's this like almost like there's the fear of like, no, of course I would never, like for me, like my ultimate I won't go into a space kind of feeling, right? Like that I can attach to is like if I was up in space and I was traveling to the moon and I like was one of those like in those, I'm really going out there right now, but like if I was in space, I was maybe you need to delete this, I don't know, but like in space, traveling to the moon, I'm like imagining
I
myself
like
in a
where you're
spaceship.
going.
I'm traveling myself in a spaceship. I'm going to the moon. I'm like not quite at the moon. I'm like in orbit in space, and like I'm thinking of all of these movies where they're like people floating out in space and they're tethered with an umbilical cord to the spaceship. If I was in that position, right, there is nothing in the world that would get me to like take a machete to that and make me float out to space, right? You know what I mean? Like I look over a waterfall sometimes and I'm like, maybe I could experience this jump. You know what I mean? Like the call of the void. But and I think for people, like there is that when we think of paradigm shifts, I think there's that sense of like I would never explore that. I would never dive into that. I would never jump into that. And it's like, okay, so resilience, I think, and like the way that like I have personally, you know, experienced paradigm shifting is through looking back and saying, regardless of the unpredictability, there's been this constant strain that I can see across the entire world, which is that there is a like not only a desire, but from that desire, an ability to live and to thrive, regardless of circumstance, regardless of climate, regardless of everything. Like there is this weird, mysterious thread that can only really be like expressed through creativity that lives and resounds, and like that promise is what I hope like allows us to realize then that the way that we are thinking now doesn't facilitate that life.
Yeah, exactly.
It like shuts it down, and that's why it kind of needs to be like, okay, we gotta like this thing that's shutting us down needs to be kind of like deconstructed and made into something new. Does that kind of make sense? Okay,
I love where you. I know, and I loved where you ended up, and I loved I really loved the visual of being in space and like cutting that tether, because that's what it feels like. Like that's what your body like your body sends signals to your brain that's like, we're in danger. Please don't go down this path.
Right.
And like that's what happened to me. Like as I started exploring my creativity, when I started my business and started getting myself out there, showing my face on social media, showing my art, all of it felt like I was about to die. And I was having panic attacks constantly because my body's like, you're floating in space and you are trying to snip the tether. And it's like, no, you're really not. Like there is a different way of being. There is a different way of thinking, and by cutting that tether, it's a metaphorical tether. You are not actually in space. You are not actually going to die. And in fact, by cutting that tether, you open yourself up to so many new connections with people and the world, and how we can interact together in this much more beautiful, cohesive way. And like for me, art became a safe place to test paradigms, I guess. It became a place where I can be like, okay, I'm not ready to do that myself, but I can do something on the side. Like I can make this like ugly little picture and practice reminding my body that it's safe to do this like weird thing that otherwise seems too out there or whatever. It's like, well, if I actually practice it, then I can like slowly train my body and teach my body that like this is an okay way to exist in the world. This is a safe way to exist in the world. And art can be a really cool, safe place to do that, which I also love that kind of brings it back to what you were talking about earlier. It was like creativity being a way to create safe space for yourself.
I like having that reflected back, because I'm like now picturing like somebody else, you know, like that create like seeing somebody like the imagination of you, you know, just like I just imagine like your hands kind of magically, like I imagine you being a cartoon and you're like made ugly art.
I
and it
became
was
the
just like,
claymation.
yeah, no, you made the claymation, and then the claymation like reflected itself back to you, and everything. This is like, yeah, and paradigms are breaking down because of it. No, I'm just kidding. No, I love that. Yeah, okay. And so with the fear too, you said something, and it clicked a thought. Is the like with the feeling of dying and the fear that like, that you know that when we face that fear, it caused me to reflect. Like I've had two serious injuries that when I regained consciousness from the situation, I was surprised to find myself alive. I was like, oh, huh. And the relief that I experienced in those moments very much reflects the sense of relief that I experience when like I am able to free myself from a train of thought that like causes me to live a life that isn't as fulfilling as it could be.
Yeah.
Like that liberation, like it feel like it is permission to give myself life. Like it is like you get to be fucking weird and you get to soak in it and bask in it and like just because it is so much better than closing a part of yourself and like then perpetuates life. Whereas these like kind of finite moments where I came face to face with like for me what life and death was, like those meanings of like constructing those meanings for myself, and it really like getting slammed by a car on a bike, you know what I mean, and be like, oh my god, and doctors be like, it's weird that you're alive, but I'm like, don't I fucking know it? Like, don't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so like that, but that's just a moment, like that's just a reminder, and so like there's this like constant source of like freedom that I feel like I'm experiencing recently, where I'm releasing myself from these thoughts, and I'm just like, whoa, like this is, it's scary, but then like the positive reinforcement of it is just like this delicious continuous access to life, like where I feel like, oh, this is what the mycelial network is blowing up for, because it's like it feels so good to continue connections, to continue growing, developing, moving ourselves out and into, as opposed to staying blocked and cookie cut. Yeah.
Is that kind of the feeling you've gotten from like doing more and more of these like open mic nights? Or have you been doing those longer than I know? Like I've only known you for like this past year or so.
Honestly, I feel like I've only known me for this past year. No, it is newer. I've been like, I've known at the open mic nights started at, this is irrelevant information, but no, it is a newer experience to be at an open mic night. It is not new for me to be behind a microphone expressing myself. But it is like a different identity and a different way of doing so, because the last time that I was behind a microphone was like 7 or like 8, this feels like 7 years ago, where I was doing that consistently. So does that answer your question? Because I could keep going because I'm a rambler, but
no, yeah, I was mostly like talking about like, or I was mostly inquiring, I guess, about
does it inquiry?
It was an inquiry about like you mentioning like that feeling of breaking out of that line of thought, and I was curious if like that was part of your process, is like challenging yourself to like do certain actions with your art or with your expression to like break, like basically take action to prove to yourself that those
paradigms are broken down.
Those paradigms can be broken down.
Yeah, and then to also say like, good job doing that, or like, you could go back to that. You could go back. You could go back to that train of thought. No, that's yet to happen. Yes, I do think that those are ways of like anchoring myself to reality, and that is incredibly necessary when I don't have anything holding my thoughts in like check, really. Like I don't know if that's accurate to say, but it's something I've been kind of toying with, is that in the way that I think, I feel as though like I am very unattached. And so yeah, the I think it's important to have senses, like to have attachment, to have roots somewhere. Where that is, is in my brain somewhere ambiguously placed, but externally, like yeah, just if this is making sense, externally the like the open mic nights or the collaborative music experiences that I participate in, like all of that kind of feels like a root, like where I want to grow my roots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Before we start kind of talking about some other stuff, would you like to make some ugly art with me?
Yes.
Yay. Cool. Yeah, grab your paper and your pen or whatever you're drawing with. I mean, really, there's no, I do like to give a little prompt just to get people started, if that's helpful. If it's not,
it's helpful. Yeah, I mean, maybe not always, but that is helpful for me right now in an enthusiastic way.
Awesome, cool. So my favorite thing to do is just to take a small piece of paper or whatever you have lying around, randomly grab whatever colors or whatever you're gonna do.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with 2 at once because that sounds fun.
Ooh.
And then basically, without looking at your paper, set your pen to the paper and then let your hand kind of just do a quick motion that feels intuitive to you.
Okay.
Some kind of scribble.
Okay. There was a pre-existing whoops on the page that is incorporated, so
excellent.
Yeah, okay, sick. Okay.
That's perfect.
There are no rules.
And then yeah, from there, I'm gonna like set a timer for us for the next like 5 minutes.
Okay.
And just kind of keep adding to whatever you have, make it as ugly as you possibly can, encouraging your brain to embrace mistakes and whatever there is. It's funny that we were on our list of topics is talking about liminal spaces.
Yeah.
And like whenever I'm like doodling and talking, I feel like I'm in just like this other place. Like, I don't know. I know liminal spaces are like those transitionary spaces, but like that's what creativity feels like to me. And someone has told me that my art looks very liminal, which makes a lot of sense to me because it feels like art becomes a transition or a transitionary space for me to explore different ideas and apply them in like a way that I might not fully be able to put words to.
What sort of ideas?
You're asking me to put words to ideas that I just said I didn't have words for.
I recognize that.
How absolutely dare you? First off, before I answer that question, the timer went off so we can share what we made.
Okay. I'm not done yet. Okay, here we go.
That's okay.
Okay.
Mine turned into you're up here.
Ooh.
Just like a really scribbly heart thing.
I like that. Oh, that's so sweet.
Yeah. I liked it.
I like it a lot.
That's really cute.
Yeah, it is. Hearts do that, dude. I love hearts just like consistently since I was like 5 until now. I feel the same when I see a little heart, and that one was just like sweet and different. I haven't.
Yeah, well, it was fun because I as I was going, I was like, I don't fucking know what this is, and then I'm like, okay, and then I just kept scribbling, and then you keep scribbling until you find something.
Yeah, then you got a little heart.
I found a heart.
Yeah, cute. Yeah. Mine is like these guys.
Ooh. Oh my gosh, they're so cute and happy.
Yeah. So these are kind of the way. This is how I doodle. I draw like weird little monster dudes, and yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. But what were you saying before that?
Oh no. What was I saying? I don't know. I think I was going to try to transition back to liminal spaces. Well, because like that, so creativity can become a type of liminal space for me where like it becomes a place to explore ideas and break down thoughts, even if like I'm not like explicitly thinking or like expressing on the paper, like because so much of my art is like abstract that like it's based on a feeling, and so much of that is like what the texture ends up looking like, or you know, some of the imagery I use in collage, or even the materials. Like I've cut out like words of a Bible to like, you know, become like this kind of flowy thing like on a page. And so it's not like it's just like it's breaking down ideas, and it becomes this like liminal space that is kind of weird and but gives space to new paradigms to be created, because it's a space of unknown and it's a space of limitless potential, and that can be really scary, but it can also be a great way to engage with yourself in a way that you're not used to.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate that you brought up the you know, incorporating like a page of, did you say a page of a Bible like into collage? Yeah, like that's, I mean, speaking of breaking down paradigms, like if one religious background, which I have the information that you do, and you have the information that I do, like we know that like one does not, thou does not like desecrate
One does not
text. Like, how dare you, dude?
Yeah.
But like that is,
I mean, straight up, if any of my family members listen to this and they like hear that, they'll probably be pretty pissed off.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like, and it's just like good. Like that's part of it, where it's just like this is this can serve as a sacred text, and it can also serve as a like medium of deconstructing. And it gets to be both of those things. Like that, the Bible itself maintains it like maintains what it is as a Bible, and like I think part of breaking down the power that it has is like to, yeah, like you're saying, like to incorporate. That's just a really prime example, is like incorporating that which we shouldn't be doing into that which is love, you know, part of our expression and ourselves. And it kind of, reverses that hold that the paradigm has. Yeah.
But yeah, like holding up the scissors to that page in the Bible felt like that scary moment of no return, of like, oh, this is this thought pattern that I thought was so important, and like I can't. It's like, nope, just snip it. You are safe. This is your new, like, these are the thoughts that you want to engage with. This is the way of living you want to engage with. Just cut the cord and keep moving forward and see what there is to discover. Yeah.
Right. That conversation toward permission.
Yeah.
And then it's just like the excitement too of being able to explore the world with a new perspective is like what for me makes life keep on like feel like worth living, you know, because it's like it's hard to find excitement, you know, like I feel like I've been reflecting on time passing a lot, and the things that bring me joy, and you know, the ways that I access childlike wonder, because that's like one of my guiding practices, is to have access to that childlike wonder. And it's like it is difficult to find if like when I'm in states of like depression or states where I can't change my thought patterns. And so to be able to have this like fresh perspective, or access this fresh perspective, and also like being able to like knowing that then, oh, I've like I cut this tether, and now like I did something scary, and I get to move through the world having that success, and like having this new perspective shift. It's just like, it's just yummy. It's just so yummy.
It's very yummy.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This is a really excellent conversation and very fun.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
well, thanks for inviting
where can
me.
people? Yeah, of course. Oh. Where can people find you, support you, hear your open mics around Tacoma?
Yes. Yeah, so I love this opportunity to just like shout out like cool aspects of the community. Yeah, I can be sometimes found through Cascadia Music Alliance. I've been playing music with them, and they've been inviting me into spaces such as Soulberry Cafe, where they do open mic nights every Monday, or they have a singer songwriter collaborative. I think it's every third Thursday of the month. And so following either Cascadia Music Alliance or Soulberry Cafe, I mean, follow both on Instagram, and then the open mic nights where I read my poetries through Creative Colloquy, and that's every third Monday of the month. So thank you for giving me the space to say that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll have information for all of those in the show notes as well. So definitely check them out. Go support Jamie and all the other awesome artists in the Tacoma area. And yeah, thank you everybody so much for listening. Thank you, Jamie, for being here, and keep it ugly, everybody. The Ugly Podcast is created by me, Laura Alexander of Scribe and Sunshine. It's produced and sort of edited also by me, and written and directed by absolutely no one. Our theme song was written and produced by the amazing Zoe Tronic. If you like the podcast, be sure to rate and leave a review on your preferred platform and share with the creative people in your life. If you're interested in learning more about what I do, head to scribeandsunshine.com to learn more about my ugly art workshops and my editing services. If you haven't yet today, I dare you to make that thing you've been thinking about making but have been too scared it's gonna be terrible. Make it terrible. And as always, keep it ugly.
You can do it. You can go create. Just get to it. I promise you'll feel great.